Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders that have overcome so that you know that the possibilities are endless. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses to work from their computers, making money, and owning their own time. Our featured guest today is Todd Angelusi. Is that
Yeah,
right? Oh,
yeah.
I gotcha. Todd Angelusi is a nurse and health and transformational life coach, brain tumor survivor, hope dealer. I love it. His interest in helping others in healthcare started when he served as a medic in the Army. Through his training, he decided to go into nursing. His passion for critical care led him to many different modalities in critical care. He realized as a nurse there were so many career options to explore in healthcare, which led him to the corporate world of medical devices, home care, and a unique role of geriatric care management. His nursing career led to stress and burnout, leading him to explore his passion for health transformation life coaching. So, welcome, Todd. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So, now you said that you began your life in the military. Now, why did you choose the military?
It's funny. It wasn't really. It wasn't by like, oh, I had this dream of being in the military. I had a fun childhood to say the least. And I was in high school and started college. I didn't do so well. I had a little more fun, and my parents were like, you're having a little too much fun for us to pay for college. And I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to wait tables, or how am I going to go to college? Because all my friends were going to college. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college, but I knew I wanted to go. So I was like, well, what can I do? And I was like, well, the Army, they'll pay for college. I saw that. And I was like, all right. And I did it. I signed up, and it turned out to be one of the best experiences that I went through, to be honest, a turning point in my life for sure.
Now, how was basic training? Was that great for you?
It was rough. It was funny because it really broke you down, and it made you work together as a team. The only color in the Army was green, and which I loved. And we just you learn so much about yourself, and it forced you to do really hard things. And I was proud of that accomplishment. I've crawled in the mud, faced some tough stuff, cold foxholes, and
What's a
it
cold foxhole?
it's below freezing, and you dug a hole and you're sleeping in that,
Oh, wow. Okay, okay, all right.
and you're like, oh my God. And you're kind of at your stress point, your breaking point. You really see what you're made of and how you react, which is really an interesting phenomenon for sure. I could probably talk a whole session about it, but you learn about yourself, good, bad, and ugly for sure.
Gotcha. Now you eventually became a nurse. Now, why nursing?
Well, what's interesting is I didn't have this like, oh, I want to be a nurse, but I loved being a medic, and I wanted to be in medicine. I liked kind of that emergency medicine type of thing. I actually, well, I grew up in the 80s. I like Cliffhanger and all that. I was like, I wanted to be like flight rescue. And so I figured nursing was a way to go. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to do all that schooling and do all that. So, that's where I got the whole idea of nursing. That was my idea. And I just went after it as soon as the military paid, and it was the best thing. I walked out with no loans, which was awesome.
It's interesting because when you're in emergency nursing, like you're attracted to that drama, that trauma, all of that. You're attracted to that. I say we're attracted to it like a flea is attracted to a dog, right? Like we love it, right? And I loved it for years as well because I was an emergency department nurse. But then after you're done, you're done. I'm good here. I don't need to do that anymore.
For sure, for sure.
Now, you do geriatric care management. Definitely a need to help geriatric population navigate their needs. How would someone get into geriatric care management?
It's interesting. I fell into it by accident. I wasn't really pursuing it. I had a friend I worked with. She's an amazing person. And I worked in a home care. I did like business development for home care and also transitional care. And I was always wondering, like, what does she do? And, she reached out to me because I was, building my business, helping other people, transformational coaching. She reached out to me and was like, hey, I need some help. The system wants to build this. It's big down south and out west. It's geriatric care management, which is a pay for service. It's not something, covered by insurance. People really pay. You're like a paid family member. You're managing people in the community, whether they have family that are, on the other side of the country, out of the country, or they don't have any family at all. You're managing the care. You're not physically doing the care. You're quarterbacking it. You're dealing with people with dementia that may not have anybody, but it's a pay for service. It's really unique. You often find people start their own business with it. You kind of see the term patient advocate and things like that. And a lot of physicians and practitioners, like when I would go into appointments with clients, they're like, oh my God, this is great that you're here. It really helps the healthcare system. It helps people. I'll go into the ER if one of the clients went in there, talk to the physicians. It's really kind of a nice role for sure.
So it's a private pay service. That's what you're saying?
It is. It is. People pay, and it's an hourly rate, and it's you don't even really need to be a nurse, but I think it's very, very important. You could be a social worker because it's not a licensed role. Like, hey, your license is on the line. I do, however, some patients I pour medications for, or set up a service to do that. You know what I mean? But um, I've transitioned to do some other things now, but it's such an awesome, it's an awesome role. And, like California, Florida, a lot of people know what it is. I live in Connecticut, Northeast. It's becoming popular for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a need because a lot of times, and I just see this all the time, there's such a lag between the hospital, you getting your doctor's appointment and understanding just navigating the whole healthcare system because sometimes it can be rough. I mean, even me, whenever I try to navigate that healthcare system for my own health, I mean, it can be a beast, right? Because it is, you know, trying to make sure like my son was younger. um he had to have two surgeries and they were going to do them separately and I was like, that's not what we're going to do. But somebody who did not have that knowledge, right, they would have been like, well, okay, he had this surgery on this day, he had that surgery on that day, but I know the risk and of putting my son under twice, right? So that's not what we're going to do. And so I was like, we need to coordinate this, and they coordinated, and then it worked out well. Now, prior to COVID, your mom passed away unexpectedly. Now, what were some of your epiphanies that you had as a result of her passing, and what were some of the things that you did as a result of it?
It's interesting. It was a combination. It was the geriatric care management role and my mom passing. Like, I started working with some people that, I worked with some dementia people, clients for sure. And also some people that just needed help. They didn't know how to navigate the system. They needed some coaching and guidance. But then my mom passed away, and she passed away at 75. It was unexpected. She didn't have, she had some minor things she was always going to the doctor for. But I realized, because she retired when she was 70, okay, died at 75.
Wow.
I realized like how life is short, and clients would tell me this, like, I've worked my whole life super hard. I've done this, CFOs, all kinds of stuff. And, this is what I got. I got Parkinson's. I got this, I got that. And I'm not even enjoying it. And so I made a decision. I said, and people are getting dementia early, which is really scary. Some people in their 50s, some memory issues, all that. And it really started to get to me, not in a bad way, but in an eye-opening way. Like, what am I doing? I'm part of this mass of people grinding it out. And like, there's this later time, and what I did was I said, my kid's older, he's adulting, which is awesome. And, I'm like, okay, I don't have to wait 10 years. People are like, when the kids grow up or when somebody's off to college. I decided to buy a lake house and live on a lake. And I was just like, I'm going to live my life now because I don't know what tomorrow will bring for sure. And none of us really do, but people don't think about it daily that they're going to die or have some issue for sure.
And, that's one of the things that, I'm very intentional. I had, because we don't talk about it, right? We don't talk about death. We don't talk about the fact that tomorrow may be our last day. And, I was talking with one of my colleagues about COVID and what happened at the beginning of COVID. I went out and my husband and I, we got wheels, right? But the reality was that we did not get like a dual power of attorney. Like we didn't do those things that, you know, would make us comfortable at the end of the day, right? And I see so many people coming to the emergency department and they are DNR DNIs, and then their family comes in, their family says do everything. And, and so what do you do, right? What do you do in those moments? Because, they're not comfortable with your decision. And none of us are getting out of here alive. Not one of us. And so we need to think about it and pace it like tomorrow is our last day, right? Go, 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 go for that thing that you would do whether anybody paid you or not. It's huge, huge, huge. So I love that. So now you lost vision in one of your eyes. What did you think it was at the time?
It was funny. I was with a client and part of the eye, it went blurry. It was kind of freaky for sure. It was like, I was like, all right, we're in COVID, got the masks, maybe I'm not drinking enough. And I walked around and I was like, oh my God, and it lasted for about 5 minutes and it went away. But it like stuck in my mind for sure. I was like, I honestly thought maybe I wasn't drinking enough or, and I didn't eat enough or whatever it was for sure. That's what I thought initially, and, I went outside afterwards. I left the client. I called my girlfriend. She's like, you should call the doctor. I said, all right, I didn't want, we're in healthcare, right? You're
Right.
like, you kind of know what they're going to say, but then you're like, all right, let me do this. And, I really have like the army taught me kind of suck it up and drive on about a lot of things, a good thing and a bad thing for sure, and, I called them and, the MA gets back to me and was like, he really wants to see you. Can you come tomorrow? And being busy, here we go. Life's busy. But I said, let me do this. I said, all right, I'll go. But in the meantime, call the eye doctor. Call the eye doctor, typical eye doctor you see once a year. I don't have any real issues, like normal aging stuff, really. I don't wear glasses. But I do have it. My family had a history of macular degeneration. So it kind of kept an eye on it. But they're like, he's like, oh, you have a ocular migraine. I'm like, what's that? I don't get headaches. I drink coffee. If I don't have enough caffeine, I do that. Right. And, when I, that's it. So when I went to the doctor, because he saw me, he goes, well, what did the eye doctor say? And he's like, I said, well, ocular migraine. He's like, yeah, they kind of use that term, a lot, but let's run some tests, kind of some carotid tests. I had friends healthy that have had strokes, that like silent, weird strokes, like tiredness, sluggishness in the head, like, and they call it a stroke. I was like, oh my God. So that kept me kind of thinking, I'm not young and I'm not old, I'm in that, I'm like, all right, you got to start thinking about certain things for sure.
But now you went to the ER because your hand went numb. Now, after all the diagnosis, your doctors came back in, and what did they say, and how did you feel?
So my doctor, when I went to see the primary that day, he's like, you should, symptoms come back, go to the ER, of course, I had friend as chiropractor. I trained for mixed martial arts stuff. I went running one day cause I train a lot, and I came back, was, just chilling out a little bit. My hand just felt weird. It was just this, like, I was like, like talking. It was strange. It was subtle though. It was really subtle. I could easily, blew it off and went to work. But I called my girlfriend. I said, I'm going to run to the hospital just to get checked. And honestly, I thought They'll scan me, they'll say, don't work as hard, do whatever. I honestly thought that. So I go in there, they do a typical stroke workup, which is, they do brain scans. So halfway through the scan, they said, oh, the doctor wants to add contrast. They talk to you in that tube thing, if you've ever been in one. I said,
Mhm.
oh, this can't be good. So I go through the scan, I get back to the ER bay. I still didn't think anything. And so the ER doctor comes in with the nurse and basically sits me down and looks at me and says, you're not going crazy. You have a marble-sized tumor in your head. I was like, what? And the next thing they said to me, and I'll never forget it because I say it, was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, it was like somebody just gut punched me. I was like, and it was like a shock. And I was like, really? And of course, my girlfriend's calling me, like, what's up? I said, this is not good. And that's where it just started. I was like, wow, you know. And I called my person I was doing geriatric care management with. I said, listen, they're admitting me here. And they're like, oh my God. But everything stopped. The things that I thought were important were not important. Honestly, I was like, okay, the job's always going to be there. There's going to be somebody else to do it. You know what I mean? And I dealt with healthcare, like on the face end of it. And I was like, okay, I'm getting admitted, you know, neurosurgeons coming to see you. I'm at this small hospital because I didn't want to go, meanwhile, we're ducking and diving COVID. We're like, all right, I didn't want to go to a big hospital. I'm looking at numbers, right? That's what I was thinking. In my head, I'm like, I'm not having great surgery.
It's so funny because we all do that, right? We all look at, okay, do I really want to go to the ER? How many people are in the ER? Let me call and find out. Those types of things. We look at what are the risks and the benefits of me going to the doctor. We do it all the time. Well, we should just go to the doctor. I love it. Now, and I think that it is important, what you said about those things just aren't important and understanding what is important. This guy, he was on this podcast and he was talking, maybe it was podcast, it was on YouTube. And he was talking about this other guy and he was talking about seeing his mom. And he says, so how often do you see your mom? Because his mom lived out of town. They lived a few hours away. And he said, I see her twice a year. And the guy's mom was 70. And he said, how often do you see her? And he said, I see her twice a year. And he said, so what you're saying to me, if she lives to 80, then you will see her a total of 10 times. And that I was like, mm. Because we have to put more focus on our families. We have to put more focus on ourselves and, be very clear that again, the job will be there whenever you finish. Right. And you have to be very clear on that. So I think that what you said about that is super, super important because you and your family are the people that will cry at your funeral are the people that you need to pay most attention to, period. So
100%.
I love it. So now you ultimately had surgery. Now, what was your prognosis?
So the strange thing about this was like I was at the small hospital and they had this young brain neurosurgeon. And of course, I wasn't going to have surgery there. He was a super guy. He goes, I don't know what this is. Looking at the scan, I go to a large medical facility in my state. Amazing neurosurgeon sees me like 3 days later. I go there, kind of tears running down my eyes. Like, it wasn't. I said it like 4 times. I go, this is hard. And he's like, yeah. He goes, Todd, I don't know what it is, but it's got to come out. 2 weeks later, COVID tests, all the stuff you got to do. I'm having brain surgery, which was an interesting experience to say the least. And he didn't know. He said it could be this, could be that. Even when they had the surgery, he's like, Todd, I still don't know. And they do a section in the OR, which led me to 2 weeks of waiting. because they said inflammatory cells, all this stuff. And in that time, like you mentioned, Will talk to the people that I needed to talk to. I didn't know if I was going to make it through surgery. There's, 5% chance, 5%, not 0.5 risk of death, coma, stroke, all that stuff. And it was hard, you know, it was hard. And, the thing that was running through my mind was like, I'm a military person. I haven't been in combat, but I study what people, I listen to military things and how it works in life and business. And I learned so much. And I'm like, if these young kids could get shot in the head, shot at everywhere, and go through all this stuff, I could do this under controlled conditions, under that. And I told myself that every moment, honestly. I said, if these guys could get out and put their lives on the line every day, I could stand up, put my pants on, my big boy pants, and drive myself to the hospital and do one hard thing after another. And that's what I did. And, it was funny because my surgery was so early. Memories come up in your life, like when you have trauma, for sure. And I was up at like 3 a.m. that morning. And I said, what was harder, boot camp or this? And boot camp was harder. Honestly, it was harder because I was awake through the boot camp. All I had to do was show up and be like, all right, I'm at the mercy of you guys.
That's right.
Pray in here.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So now you are cancer. Well, it wasn't cancer.
It wasn't. I was really lucky. It's not the best tumor. It's not the worst tumor, but it's benign. It could come back. It's something to have to be mindful of, but you're never the same. When you face your mortality, one, face kind of death right there. And also, you're looking at things in a very different way. And somebody was actually doing surgery in the CPU of your body. Like, it's not your hand, it's not your arm, like your leg, it's your brain. And you're like, well, what is up now? Like you question a lot of things because you don't know,
I love it. A CPU of your body. It definitely is your CPU for sure. So now you said that nurses are always going through crisis and there are many times they're cruel to each other. Why do you think that this is the case and what are some tactics to improve the culture?
Yeah, I learned this, working with a lot of my friends and clients too are nurses. And I learned this through the brain tumor experience. Like, people, like, it's about ourselves and our health and taking care of ourselves. And a lot of people are confused about it. And nurses too, like, this was traumatic. It helped me to understand trauma a little more. And I started to see it in nurses and I started to see it in myself and some of my friends that were in the ICU, especially during COVID. It's like battlefield stress for them, right? So I feel that there's a trauma that nurses go through, even back in the day when I was in the ICU. Like, we're eating donuts and doing stuff around people that are dying, right? And we're just like numb to it because we've been in it for so long. And I think that affects our mentality. And I think what happens is we get angry. It's all this stuff we don't know what to do with and all this, and it starts to seep out sideways. I started to study more too I listen to podcasts a lot, about people that were in combat, right? And the thing that held them together is the very thing that I think needs to be worked on was they were in it for the guy next to them in the foxholes, walking, helping each other, no matter how hard it got, no matter what the rules were up top that they had to carry out. What helped them was what they had to do. They did it for the guy next to them. And as nurses, we need to do it for the person next to us. We need to support each other. We need to not, bully each other. We need to be together. And I think it starts with leadership. And I think that nurses need to learn how to be better leaders for sure. And I believe that all leadership starts with self-leadership.
That's right. That's right. I love that. And one of the things that you said so much in that, but one of the things is that, us as nurses, we're taught the logistical parts of nursing. We're not taught leadership. We're not taught leadership at all. And so you come in and you place the new nurse okay, because nurses are leaving the bedside at droves, right? So you place a new nurse into a leadership position and she's not been equipped to lead. And so, I was one of those nurses. I was put in a leadership position, but I wasn't equipped to lead. And I had to get my leadership outside of the organization, because at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you are leading your team, because you're leading people. It's important that you have a heart for the people that you're leading, not to the numbers, not to, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, as long as you are leading your people, and it starts with self leadership, as you said. And a lot of times, whenever we're in the emergency department, we suffer all these traumas, right? You see all these things, and they say that they want you to debrief, but how can you debrief? You can't debrief. You got to get on to the next patient, right? And so I think what you said about making sure that you're taking care of your coworker, that is huge, huge, huge. Now, who is a person that has impacted your life, and why are they so impactful?
It's funny. I thought about this, and there's been a lot of people in my life that have taught me some things, but like, I asked some people that have known me for a long time, like, what, I don't, I came from really, an upbringing wasn't the greatest, and made stuff of myself. And they said you were determined, right? And, back in the 80s, remember Tony Robbins came out with all these like tapes, right? I used to listen to that guy all the time. I literally would
Oh,
throw him in my car. And that was kind of the start of me starting to be like taking charge of my health and my life and all kinds of things. Like, I viewed health as eating and physical activity, which I did. I really spent a lot of time on the mental stuff. Don't get me wrong. I spent a ton of time on it, but I didn't look at stress and trauma. And so he was one. And then as I kind of move forward, I always look at personal development. I really like this guy, Jocko Willink. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. He commanded troops in Ramadi. And he created a book called Extreme Ownership, how leaders, adapt, these principles he's learned in war, because he feels that war is life amplified, which I so get now. And I started to listen to him, and the stuff that I've learned through that. He wrote children's books now. He writes children's books too, which is amazing for kids and all kinds of stuff. But those are kind of like, if I had to like think of some famous people, of course, my dad, certain things that he taught me, and some mentors along the way. I really leaned into mentorship,
I love that you said the famous people, because a lot of times we don't think about that. But the reality is that, YouTube University, as I call it, as some people call it, YouTube University has taught me a lot. And
Yeah.
so you want to make sure that, there are people that are in spaces. You're some of the people you hang out with the most. And if you hang out with some people that are on YouTube a lot, then you can learn a lot. So I love it. So now, what is a book that has been impactful for your life, and why was it so impactful?
Yeah, like I said, Extreme Ownership, that book I think is amazing. I listen, it's funny. I listen to audio, I read too, but he actually narrates the audio with his partner, and it's so powerful. And they use certain principles, and it taught me discipline, self-discipline. And I think like we need discipline in our lives because it gives us the freedom we need. Also extreme ownership. Like no matter what, it falls on me. Like as a leader, as a person, whatever it is, I'm making a choice or not making a choice. I need to own it so I could move on and not blame. I think we get caught into this victim mentality, and I've saw myself doing it for a long time. And I said, hey, it's on me no matter what it is, and the examples in that book are just amazing. And I listen to his podcasts are long. Some of them get 3-4 hours,
Oh,
but
wow.
I listen to him because he interviews people that have been through like some interesting things, and you just like start to learn about like, wow, that's pretty interesting that you didn't know, you know what I mean? So that's kind of the book for me, I have to say.
So now you're a certified health coach. Where can the audience find you?
Well, the best way to find me is really on Facebook. Todd Angelucci. It's pretty simple. Angelusi. Some people, there's an Italian there, and then there's a not. And it depends where you're from. And so you could look at, you could just check me out on Facebook. I do a lot of posting there. And Facebook Messenger, if people want to reach out. I'm really passionate about helping people like look at some of the issues they have and what's been holding them back, and really look at this. Like the brain tumor is a gift. It showed me something. It showed me a lot for sure about what I needed to move forward with, and things I needed to change. All this perceived bad stuff is there to serve for sure.
I love it. I love it. Nothing happens to you, it happens for you.
Happens forward.
So now we will be starting another cohort. Thank you, first of all, for showing up. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time talking to you. We will be starting another cohort of VP Nursing Business Academy in October. It is a 6-month comprehensive program that leads nurses and coaches to working from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time. If this interests you, we can jump on a call so that you're able to gain clarity on how to create multiple streams of income. You can sign up at V as in Victor, P as in Paul, nursing.com. I ask that you like and share this podcast. And just know that Morning Infusion with Dr. V is where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders such as Todd that have overcome, so that you know that the possibilities are endless. You guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.